Hi everyone, thanks for stopping by. I'm Bob Paulinski, Master of Wine. Today's video is about the latest round of Kirkland wines available at Costco. I stopped at my neighborhood Costco, the one in Northern California that I shop at on a regular basis. There I picked up every Kirkland wine that I could find. I found 13 on this trip, 3 of which are going to be reviewed in detail in this video. The remaining will be detailed in the description down below. Now, some of these wines are available year-round in many cases. Some of them are available on a broad scope. Others are more hit and miss. Some of the more seasonal items can come and go very quickly. So if there's something here that catches your attention, I suggest that you act on it as quick as you can. The wines that you may find at your local Costco are going to vary a bit from what I'm finding in California. It's just the nature of how the club business works at Costco. But I do think there's going to be some overlap. The pricing that I'm providing is California pricing. Again, that pricing is going to vary by market, but it will give you an indication of where the cost should land. In addition, at the back half of this video, I'm going to provide a little more information around how to decipher some of the numbers and codes that are on the signs. They're going to help you to make better shopping decisions. And at the very end of this video, I'm going to provide links to a couple of other Kirkland wine videos that I've done previously. Okay, let's get to the first wine. And rosé is generally what I consider to be the most overhyped, most overpriced wines on the market. But I've got to say the Kirkland Provence Rosé from 2022 really caught me by surprise. So this is the Côte de Provence, and Côte de Provence for many is really the benchmark standard for rosé. It's the most copied style outside of the region of Provence. There's a few places in the world that may debate this a bit, places like Tavel. Most places in Italy that produce rosé make a very different style. But widely, this is considered to be the benchmark standard, and it's the most copied. In many cases, the pricing of these wines is incredibly overinflated. A lot of this has to do with the way the wines are promoted. It can be linked to some celebrities and so on. Oftentimes, the packaging has something to do with it as well. This one, you strip out all of that, and this one really delivers in terms of what Côte de Provence rosé should be for a very reasonable cost. In this case, this wine sells for $7.99 in California. As is typical with many Côte de Provence rosés, this is primarily made from Grenache. There's also a good amount of Cinsault and Syrah. There's a whole laundry list of other grape varieties as well. But you'll see the color is pale pink, which is something that a lot of folks are attracted to. It's just a good-looking color for this wine. Keep in mind, this is the 2022 vintage. This is a type of wine that really does not age all that well. It shows best in its youth. So getting that very current vintage, I'm sure this just hit Costco recently. The current vintage is what you want to drink. In terms of the aromatics, this has all the telltale signs that you'd find in Provence Rosé. It's bright, it's fresh, there's a red fruit character. It's actually like a strawberry jam note to it. Very pretty aromatics, but very bright, lively. It has all those youthful characteristics. On the palate, this ticks all the boxes for Provence Rosé. Bright red fruit, clean, zesty. There's a lot of purity to it. It's a fairly delicate style. I see the alcohol level on it. It's not too high. It's 13%, which is typical for Provence Rosé. But it's bright, fresh. It's all primary fruit. It's a wine definitely made to be drank when it's youthful. But it ticks every box that you could be looking for Provence Rosé. And it does it at a price that's under $10, which is extremely tough to find in today's market. So if you're into rosé, if it's something that you really like, and this is certainly very gulpable on a warm summer day, this is a wine you should definitely pick up before it's gone. Also, just a bit of a side note on this wine. The closure that's being used here, I think you can see that. It's called a Diam cork, D-I-A-M. It's a company that's been around for some years, but they've really advanced the wine world in terms of eliminating what's commonly called cork taint or TCA, trichloroanisole. It's what affects wines and can bring very off characteristics to the wines. Many rosés will use alternative closures. Glass closures, various other synthetic closures are commonly used. Some of these can be quite expensive. This is a very cost-effective and efficient closure that is being used for this wine. So I would imagine that the choice to use this DM closure probably has to do with keeping the cost in check. And this is really a godsend in terms of preserving the wine and having to show its very best. Okay, now off to the next wine, and this one is, I think, a tremendous value. This is the Kirkland 2020 Napa Valley Cabernet Sauvignon. If you've paid attention to Napa pricing over the last several years, it just continually bumps up. It's very difficult to find much anything in Cabernet Sauvignon that's under $20 a bottle. This one comes in at $14.99, and I've got to say, when I saw this, I was a little suspect. I thought, how can this wine deliver for that sort of money when the price of much Napa Valley Cabernet Sauvignon is absolutely through the roof? Well, I think part of the story behind this is who the winemaker is. It's somebody I've actually known for a number of years. Her name is Allison Crowe. I think she is a super talented winemaker. Most of her work history has been tied to Pinot Noir, so I was really curious to see how the Cabernet stood up, and I'm impressed. The color of this wine has some good density to it. It's a 2020 vintage, so again, very youthful, but the color extends to the rim of the glass. It's not deep, it's not this opaque style of Cabernet Sauvignon, but it has good color density. In terms of the aromatics, it's all dark fruit and has this coffee, this charred oak character, a bit smoky, a little vanilla. Very nice aromatics. I wouldn't say it's super complex, but it has a purity, there's good intensity to it. Very nice aroma. This is not a blockbuster style of Cabernet, but it's round, it's soft, there's some good weight to it. Very soft on the tannins, good structure. The oak that's used in this is well integrated, but it does have a smoky charred characteristic. So if you're one that likes wines that have a bit more oak influence, I think this is going to fit the bill for you. In terms of value for the money, again, I think this is a tough one to beat. Napa Cabernet at this price is almost unheard of in today's market. Don't know how long this one's going to be around. But I think this is a solid bottle. So if you're into Napa Cab and you can find it in your Costco, pick it up. This one's definitely worthwhile. And now off to the third and final wine. And this one, I have to admit, when I saw this, I was excited. I absolutely love these wines, and I was curious to see how this one shows. And I'm quite happy with it. This is the 2021 Kirkland Chateauneuf de Pape. This wine is primarily made from Grenache with smaller amounts of Syrah and so Mourvedre. It's really that typical Southern Rhone blend. Over the years, I have found the Kirkland Rhone wines, the Southern Rhone wines, to show very well. When it's available, their Côte de Rhone Village is rock solid. Had very good experience with their Gigondas. I don't believe I've had the Chateauneuf de Pape under the Kirkland label before, so I'm curious to try it. Pouring the wine, it has good color density. This is not ultra deep. Keep in mind, this is primarily Grenache, which generally are not going to be highly extracted wines. Also, a bit of a function of the vintage. 2021 was a tough year in many places in France. Tough in terms of quantity, in some cases tough in terms of quality as well, which was another test for this wine. I was curious to see how this showed. But the color density here looks good, which is certainly a healthy sign. There's a little bit of a fade as you get out to the rim of the glass, but nothing out of the norm that you'd expect for this type of wine at this age. Aromatics are just what you'd expect with a solid Chateauneuf de Pape. It has a bit of a savory spice character, some red fruit, a bit of alcoholic heat. Looking at the back label, this is not for the timid. This wine has 15% alcohol. Increasingly, you're finding Chateauneuf de Pape in that 14.5, 15%. There is a bit of alcoholic heat on the aromatics, but it's not something that's overbearing or out of line for the type of wine that it is. On the palate, it's got good density. There's ripeness. There's weight to it. It's not a super complex wine, but I think it does tick all the boxes that would be expected from Chateauneuf de Pape. The wine's very young. It's only been opened about 15 minutes. I'm curious to see how this shows a little later tonight, and I'll give this a go for dinner time. But I think the wine will open up. The tannins are slightly astringent. Again, not all that uncommon for a wine of this type at this age. Recently, I saw a wholesale price list for Domaine bottled Chateauneuf de Papes from the 2021 vintage. Now, this one is not what I would say is one of those uber premier Chateauneuf de Papes, but looking at the prices that are coming out for the 2021s, this wine is an incredible value. It's kind of an odd price point. It's at $19.69 in California. But to find a wine like this that's at that $20 range is really a solid statement in terms of what Kirkland can deliver. I like this wine. I think it's going to develop into something a little bit more as the evening progresses. If you pick this up, I wouldn't hesitate to hold this wine for a few years. I think it'll develop nicely. But if you see it and you're fans of Southern Rhone, you're a fan of Chateauneuf de Pape, pick this up. I think you're going to be quite pleased. Signs that show instant savings are actually supplier-funded programs. They're set for a finite period of time. Pay attention to the expiration date. If you see an asterisk in the upper right-hand corner of the sign, it means the item is being discontinued. It may come back at a later date, it may not. In the wine department, this is very common as items come and go very quickly. So if you see that asterisk and it's an item that you want, that's the time to load up. If you have a Kirkland wine story you'd like to share, please post it down in the comment section. I'd love to hear from you. I try to follow up on each and every one of those comments. I'm obviously going to be drinking some Kirkland wine tonight. I've got some good things to choose from. I'm really curious to see how the Chateauneuf de Pape develops as the evening goes on. If you haven't subscribed, please consider doing so. It very much does help this channel. Share it with your like-minded wine friends. And I don't know what's going on. I feel like I'm having a really weird hair day today. But thanks so much for sticking around. I look forward to seeing you again. Cheers.